Hello everybody and welcome to a new video from MinnMax. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. My name is Ben Hansen. Thank you for being here and welcome to the MinnMax Council Showcase. Over the last couple days at E3, it has been an avalanche of really cool looking indie games. There are hundreds of games that have been announced over the last couple days. I needed help sorting through what was promising. There's so much cool stuff out there. And so with the MinnMax Patreon, we have the MinnMax Council tier, which normally means that people at that tier can participate in the MinnMax Council podcast, which is a Patreon exclusive podcast every single week. And they can also call in at the end of every single month to talk to us about whatever they'd like. And so this week we thought, well, we should tap into that great resource to figure out what are some great games that might have slipped through the cracks for people. And if you want to help support the developer, you can also wishlist these games on Steam. It really does help in a big way. So we've asked the MinnMax Council what was a favorite hidden gem from E3 2021, and here are 17 responses. Philly Yeatsteak over there on MinnMax's Patreon wants everybody to know that Trek to Yomi looks sweet, they say. It looks like a fast but grounded samurai slasher, like Ghost of Tsushima, but as a side-scroller. So Trek to Yomi is published by Devolver, and it has the same developer as The Eternal Castle, which was the fake remake of an old computer game, if you remember, from a couple years ago, but it's coming out in 2022, and it definitely looks great. Troy Ellison says there's a new Kickstarter game called SacriFire that looks pretty cool. It's an Octopath-style RPG that's apparently inspired by Vagrant Story. Yeah, this does look fantastic. The developer's name is Pixelated Milk, and they just launched the Kickstarter, and it's well on its way to hitting the goal. SacriFire seems to be in that mold of HD 2D, which maybe Octopath Traveler just opened the door, but it's great to see this art style being a mainstay in the game industry now. Chris Logan over on Patreon says the wholesome direct was so pleasant, and it's a genius way to reframe what is essentially an indie showcase to feel fresh. It was only on the screen for a few seconds at the end, but I got so excited for Toodee and Topdee. I love two-player puzzle solving, and the perspective-changing hook here was very clear in the short time we saw the game. It reminds me a bit of Ibn Ab on the PlayStation 3. Yeah, there's no release date yet for Toodee and Topdee, but definitely one to keep your eye on. Tactical Dreamer over on Patreon says, oh boy, I've written down at least 90 games from the past several days that I'm interested in playing, so picking one's really hard. But to pick one that I haven't seen get much press, I'll go with Hunt the Night from Guerrilla Collective. That was the name of the stream that it was on. It's developed by Moonlight Games. They don't have a release date yet, but the way they described Hunt the Night is that it's a retro-style action-adventure game that combines a fast, skilled gameplay with dark fantasy lore. I Like Colorful Socks over on Patreon. Funky name, sure, we'll take it. They want to point out that, hey, 12 minutes still looks awesome. I enjoy a good mystery and it reminds me of the mechanic in Outer Wilds, so it should be a really cool experience. If you haven't seen 12 Minutes, it's the Annapurna game that has Willem Dafoe, Daisy Ridley, and James McAvoy in it. And it's an interactive thriller about being stuck in a time loop. The way they describe it on their site, very naturally, is that it's an interactive narrative that blends the dreamlike suspense of The Shining with the claustrophobia of Rear Window and the fragmented structure of Memento. And 12 Minutes is coming out August 19th, 2021, so not too far away at all. Josh Carmel over on the Patreon there says, I'm really looking forward to Sega's Civilization-like game called Humankind, but if that's too above the radar, then I'm gonna go with Spirit Swap, Lo-Fi Beats to Match 3-2. It was one that really got my attention. It was shown at the Wholesome Direct, but announced a couple months ago as a Kickstarter. It's basically a rhythm Puyo Puyo game with Supergiant-like art style and great music, and it looks like an insanely chill, enjoyable time. Yeah, so Spirit Swap is from the developer Soft Not Weak, and it kind of looks like it has a panel-to-pawn structure to the actual puzzles here. It's coming out in 2022, and as they describe the action, cast spells, be queer, and crash the biggest concert of the year. Bob Buell says, I know it's cheating, but 2 games at the PC Gaming Show really knocked my socks off. You got some nerve, Bob Buell. The first, They Always Run, a pixel art Dead Cells style platformer that has really given me vibes of old school 16-bit Shinobi and X-Men side-scrolling action games. Yeah, They Always Run is coming from Allaware Premium, and it's coming out in 2021. But then Bob says, also, Lemnis Gate, a turn-based time loop FPS arena shooter where the gimmick is that players tactically battle for objectives over several time loop rounds using different characters one by one. It looks like a weird first-person shooter chess match where each time loop round adds another character's actions to the battlefield, either to assist your previous character's loop or to try to take out one of your opponent's character's loops. Good choices, Bob. Jeff Enright over there on Patreon says, I haven't heard anything about this charming little game called Timberborn, but I'm intrigued. I love the theme, cartoon art style, and the coined lumber punk aesthetic. Not sure if it brings anything new to the genre, but I'm excited. Yeah, this is from developer Mechanistry, and it's gonna be released in early access in 2021. Timberborn, y'all. Cloudy says, I was super excited to see Slime Rancher 2 announced during the Xbox press conference. I'm not super happy about the Xbox exclusivity as a PlayStation 5 owner, but it still looks great. Yeah, so they know Slime Rancher 2 is coming in 2022 and it's gonna be released day and date on Game Pass, which is great. It is Xbox exclusive, but also means it's coming to the PC and Epic Game Stores, so if you're interested there, you can always pick it up. It's from the same developer, Monomi Park. And the way they describe it is that Slime Rancher 2 returns to the far, far range and finds Beatrix LeBeau on unfamiliar shores across the Slime Sea on the mysterious Rainbow Island. Tanner Hoisington says, I haven't got all the indie shows, but for me, I'm the most into Unbeatable. It's a rhythm adventure game with an anime Studio Trigger-esque look, and from what I've heard, a nice soundtrack. I love that DS-era environment exploration the game has as well. Yeah, this is from developer D-Cell, and they showed this off during the Day of the Devs. Spencer Bertine over there says, I haven't heard it mentioned yet on the E3 podcast, so please ignore this if it was already discussed, but Replaced has me shooketh. We did talk about Replaced a little bit on the most recent episode of the MinnMax Show podcast, which we'll have a bonus episode on Tuesday and then a regular episode this week for even more E3 mop-up. Thanks for subscribing on your favorite podcast app. But Spencer Martin says, the art direction, the cyberpunk setting, the music, I am incredibly hyped for that title, and it came out of nowhere for me. Yeah, so Replaced definitely has turned a lot of heads. It's from Sad Cat Studios. It's releasing in 2022, and as they describe it, Replaced is a 2.5D sci-fi retro futuristic action platformer where you play as Reach, an artificial intelligence trapped in a human body against its own will. Explore the world, push your body's limits in intense combat, and learn what it's like to be a living being. Well, who can say no to that? Starkiller says, a little to the left from the Wholesome Games Direct was the game where you straighten things or line things up on the screen. It really looks like it's going to scratch the perfectionist itch in my life. Yeah, this game is beautifully simple, and it's from Max Inferno, which is a small development team from Nova Scotia. It seems great. I'm definitely looking forward to playing that when it comes out. It does seem weirdly satisfying. James Smith writes in on Patreon and says, Party Animals from the Xbox/Bethesda showcase look really fun. I really love the vibes it's given off, and that trailer is amazing. It's probably not the smallest game I could have picked, but definitely overshadowed in that Goliath of a showcase. Yeah, so Party Animals is from a studio called Recreate Games, which notably is not the Gang Beasts studio. It just looks an awful lot like Gang Beasts. I really thought it was Gang Beasts 2 when we were watching the reveal. But Party Animals definitely seems like it's going to be a good time, and it's releasing in 2022. Shazira writes in over there on Patreon about Songs of Conquest, which she's really excited about. She says it's framed as a spiritual successor to Heroes of Might and Magic. It's coming out in the first quarter of 2022, and they describe it as a classic turn-based strategy adventure that fuses RPG, armed conflict, and kingdom management. Raise mighty armies, wield ancient magic, and conquer distant lands to build an empire that bards will sing about for centuries. And Thomas Hoster in the MinnMax community wants everybody to know that he's very much looking forward to Stalker 2, which was the second game shown at the Xbox Bethesda press conference. It does look great, but if you want something a little more under the radar, he says that Shredders looks like awesome snowboard fun. That snow looked amazing, and it looked a lot smoother than the snowboarding in Riders Republic. Yeah, personally, as a huge fan of SSX, I am happy to see some new snowboarding games out there. It seems like maybe skateboarding fans have been satiated with the remake of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, but SSX fans are still craving something new. So yeah, I'm happy to see an indie team like this, Foam Punch Games is the developer's name, creating something new. And it's gonna be out on Game Pass in December. Well, that's it for the MinnMax Council Showcase. Hopefully it was quick and breezy and put some new games on your radar. Leave a comment below if you have some other games that you think deserve a little bit more of a spotlight as we're all drowning in new announcements. And stay tuned to the rest of MinnMax's E3 coverage. We have obviously the Nintendo Showcase coming up on Tuesday, our reactions to that, and then a bonus episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. And as always, if you like this type of content, you can support it or join it over at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We appreciate it. Thanks so much, everybody. If you are sick of snark, clickbait, and an avalanche of movie news, you can help support independent games media by subscribing to MinnMax's YouTube channel here or checking out the benefits over on Patreon. It's a nice, clean handshake. You support us, and we won't make dumb, condescending stuff for you. Your support helps us continue our mission of focusing on games, friends, and getting better. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We'd appreciate it.